from what I hear from other people, it's beautiful outside. I can see it. I might go out and get the mail later.
It's not super sunny here, but it's the perfect fall temperature outside.
I'm gonna.
What is that?
Where are you at, Laura?
I'm in Lansing. It feels like it's about 60, maybe 50, somewhere between 50 and 60. What is it? Let's see.
Why did my phone say we were going to get snow today?
It's warm today. No. Refresh.
Right. Yeah, it's 59 right now.
Okay.
Yeah. not actually seeing it on Facebook, so I have no idea.
Not yet, but yesterday it took a few minutes before it actually showed up because there is a delay.
Okay.
That is correct. Usually, I believe it does take a couple seconds to kind of click in.
So we'll just chat a little bit. Neil, what's if anybody wants to post on Twitch, what's your handle on Twitch?
Well, you don't really post on Twitch, but if you want to watch and or participate in the community chat there, it's twitch.tv/risk immersed.
Okay,
And,
cool.
you can join in there if you want to. Or you can just go on Twitch at the website and type in risk_immersed.
Okay. Awesome. And I'm going to hit record just in case the live never goes live.
Yeah, I don't see it live yet.
I wrote down instructions and everything. I can
stand by for technical difficulties.
Yeah. So let me just stop and just redo it again, just to make sure. Thanks everybody for your patience. I'm 51 years old. This does not come natural to me.
That's fine. Age has nothing to do with it. I am very.
It does. It does. It absolutely does.
We are as relevant as we make ourselves.
Exactly. Thank you, Tracy. And I'm trying my darndest to stay relevant.
It is my value. It is my value. Okay. Well, it is what it is. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we will make it up to everybody who's waiting for us to go live on Facebook. So I am Regina Penny, and I'm the Executive Director of Nonprofit Network. Neil and I were having a conversation, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, a month ago, and Neil shared some data that he's going to share with you, which is going to launch us into a conversation about what's going on in our communities. The conversation I had with Neil a month ago was so impactful to me that I decided that I needed to go out and find other experts that were seeing the way the pandemic is impacting our communities in a way that none of us are seeing, very few of us are seeing, but ultimately as this snowball gathers steam, gathers girth, gathers trauma, that all of us are going to be impacted by what's going on today, and the irreversible effects that the nonprofit community is going to need to fix is pretty significant. So that's the foundation of this conversation that I want to have with Neil. And I don't know, most of you may not know Neil, and I want you to know him well. He's going to be a resource to us all. Neil, could you first give us a little bit, not just about Rise Above, but I want the folks here to know you. So can you just introduce yourself to my friends?
Yeah, sure. So everyone can hear me okay? Awesome. Yeah, my name is Neil Fernandez. My wife and my kids and I came to the United States about, I guess it's the 11th or 12th year now that we've been here. Originally, I came here a university student, came here to get a second degree. I quit some jobs that I had back in Canada as operations director, VP of operations for companies like Coca-Cola, Garda, Weyerhaeuser, large multinational companies. Plus having started and ran about 6 of my own, 7 technically if you count Rise Above, even though it's not necessarily a company, it's a nonprofit. And when I finished my degree at Spring Arbor, we kind of got in this kind of group of adults that was having this similar conversation about academics. And what we realized then is that something needs to be done to help a particular population. And that's where my Twitch name comes from, this risk immersed. Because there's a certain risk immersed population within Jackson County that we felt was underserved or not served at all. Particularly those students who are lost to our academic system through expulsion and or quietly saying, maybe you just don't fit here, which happens a lot more than everyone thinks it does. Or we're just kind of like, okay, we're just not going to watch. And so we quietly took my senior year, molested my 4.3 GPA, and I focused solely on developing this nonprofit called Rise Above. And with singular purpose, we took a vision that was really 1.5 miles wide, and we narrowed it right down to this expulsion category. We thought we were going to do ESL and a bunch of, other stuff, And so through some research and talking to others, and honestly, we went to Illinois, we went to Indiana, we went to Ohio, went to all these different states and looked for somebody else that was doing similar work. And what we found quickly was there was nobody that was doing what we were envisioning. And what we'd envisioned was not just a place where kids that were kicked out of school could go, to kind of hang out after school, maybe do some homework if they had any, because if you're expelled, you really don't have any. Maybe you learn a job skill. And hey, we'll teach you how to do your laundry, was a lot of what we saw. And those are great things, but it really, in our mind's eye, didn't resolve the issue. It didn't get to the root of what caused that student to beat up his teacher, to bring a gun to school. Why are you self-harming? Why are you self-medicating? Why are you doing all these things that causes society to kind of want to box you in and or expel you as much as possible? And so the phrase that my wife, the co-founder, and I used a lot was, we need to back it up. We need to step back and look at what caused that thing to happen. Okay, so what caused you to get expelled that day? Was it a combination of events, or was it a singular event? Did you just watch your mom get beat up that day before you came to school and the teacher didn't ask and just thought you were acting out in math class? Or was it something more? When we say, okay, yeah, you watched your mom get beat up this morning, so you acted out today. Was that a series of events that had been happening over time, this new boyfriend, any number of things? And so when we started looking at what Rise Above was and was not going to be, we decided early on that it was going to be purely a social environment that where we came alongside students using academics as a way to resolve the real issues that they were facing. So we call academics the bait on the hook. So we say to the school, we say to the parent, the student, hey, you know what? You just got expelled. Why don't you get your butt in here? We'll give you a hand. We'll help you stay on track with your academics. Oh, and by the way, while you're here, we also have a licensed counselor on staff that's going to talk you through some stuff. It's free of charge. Don't worry about it. It's not going to cost you nothing, but just come on in and come on a journey with us. That way we can get you back to school on track and ready to go. And so we are not a replacement for, we are a partnership with every element of our community, including our schools and our parents and our students. We are not a replacement for schools. We are not an accredited institution. As a matter of fact, we pride ourselves in the fact that we work with all of the school districts. The credits that the students get come from their home school or the sending school. The other amazing thing is that sometimes schools don't want to work with the student anymore. So say, I'll just pick one arbitrarily, School ABC. I was going to use a name, but I didn't. School ABC says, I'm smart, sometimes. School ABC says, you know what, I expelled Johnny for bringing a gun to school. We just don't want to deal with Johnny anymore. So what's beautiful about Jackson County is we have 13 districts. Every time we've taken Johnny in, and we've said to the community, hey, we need a school to pick Johnny up to provide him online classes, somebody has stepped up. That's how awesome our community is. So in starting Rise Above, what we found was not only was Jackson perfect, a perfect breeding ground for this opportunity to start both academically, because we have 13 districts that actually talk to each other, which is abnormal. Because when we started this thing called Rise Above, I was told, Neil, it's impossible. You'll never get the schools to agree. Literal, I could quote that. From very influential people in our community. People sat in the building I'm in today because they knew we were talking with one school and said, one might bite, but the rest are, they won't happen. And that, I just hearing no is just a challenge to me. So,
So Neil, you started looking at data.
Yeah.
Can you compare what you've seen in the last 6 months around the challenges facing the schools and the kids you serve?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I stated earlier, Rise Above is a social thing that uses academics as a means to resolve long-standing issues. So what we're finding, and let me back up. What we suspected was going to happen is now what we're seeing happen. In basically what we suspected would happen was that students that traditionally do well in school are now starting to slip. And in particular, we were most worried about freshmen and seniors. Because freshmen are coming out of middle school where grades really don't matter. You just get kind of pushed along. And so when you get into your freshman year of high school, you still have that idea that that's how things work. Because it's not often that it's explained well to freshmen that, hey, you're really responsible for your grades now and you can fail. And so we were concerned about that population. And then obviously about seniors because you don't have any time left. You got to get every credit here to graduate unless you have, that 1 or 2 spaces left, which some do, some don't. And so now when we started talking to schools anecdotally in September, August into September, is they were kind of sensing that we'll be okay. Students will, we'll have our issues, but nothing major. As soon as it started, we immediately started talking to teachers, and they were saying, wow, I've got like 5 or 6 kids that it's the end of September haven't even logged in yet. Or I've got this many students who are failing 2 or more classes. And most districts, you fail 2 classes in a year, you've got to be pretty much on spot the rest of your academic career through high school. You only get 1 or 2 spots to drop. So when
to graduate and to have access to scholarships, yes, and to get into colleges, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So again, when we're talking about GPAs, and both of my boys, I have 3 kids. My 2 youngest, one's a senior university and one's a 10th grader in high school. Both of them are soccer players. So they are dependent, or they are taking advantage of scholarships. So my 10th grader right now, he's like, yeah, whatever, I'm just pounding away on the keys and doing my thing. And I'm like, dude, you need to worry about your GPA. Like, scholarships are a real thing. You drop it, like, now we're on top of it. So it's, it makes sense. We have enough time in our day. And this is what Regina and I were talking about before. Even if you come from a family that is attentive, if parents think everything's going well, Johnny's grades are coming in and stuff like that, and you may lose focus because you don't have as much, not always anyways, interaction with your school in these settings that you would normally. So initially what we found was, and hypothesized, was that students were going to be late to logging in. They weren't going to be very attentive to their coursework because when it comes to online studies and doing things at home, Google becomes your friend real quick. And so what initially was a thought now is turning into reality. So the deeper we've gotten into this, the more we've actually heard now from administration, from various schools that, and again, and I want to say this because I didn't say this well on the JTV interview I did the other day. This is not the school's fault, right? Schools are scrambling as much as everybody else at the moment. I'm not blaming anybody in this conversation. I'm merely stating that students are going to struggle going forward. And I don't know whether our schools will have the capacity now or later to help students get through this well. And all we're saying is that Rise Above wants to put ourselves in a position where we want to be a part of that solution as we have the conversation, and we are the part of the solution right now. So right now, what we're hearing from schools, administrators, and teachers is that there is a huge segment. I've had one school tell me as high as 30% have yet to log in. I've had, I have another group saying that they have students, they have in just their one school, 60 students who are failing 3 or more classes this semester.
Is this secondary education? Is this?
I'm mostly talking high school.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Now, to clarify that, if I went back into middle school and we've had some of those conversations, we're seeing it a higher number, but I mean, again, they push the kids through middle school all the time. So I don't think the focus is the tragedy is as close there. But the tragedy there is more, for me, is more social. Middle schoolers in elementary really need a social environment.
And so, Neil, just for the audience sake, you're talking about Jackson County, but there's no difference between Jackson County and Calhoun or Ingham or maybe even any other county in this entire country. Right?
Yep, I agree.
This is.
Yep. There will be no difference. The only difference will be a community's approach. So some communities have stricter lockdowns and parameters about what schools can and can't do going into situations like this. So if it's more urban or more rural, there may be a different response with regards to the number of students that we're talking about and being able to get kids together. There might be a better parent-teacher organization in one community versus another that does things. There might be a more robust 501c3 or nonprofit group group of churches in a community that does more or less. But as it pertains to specialized work like what we're doing, that to our knowledge there isn't any other that is doing specifically the work that we're doing.
So, of all of the school districts that you're working with,
yeah,
every single one of them is having issues like this.
To varying degrees. And when I say issues, really what we're talking about, they're having students that are struggling. Yes, 100%.
So can we talk about, we briefly touched on GPA and school success is going to dramatically impact our kids' ability to, if the universities, if the scholarship system doesn't adjust, then we've got a ton of kids that are now locked out of higher education. Yeah. We can anticipate that hopefully they'll do some COVID accommodation. Yeah. So maybe and so we're really talking about the next 4 years, yeah, after, 21 to whenever, that we get our kids back into a stable environment to, because there's a tail whip here, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Like
and you heard me say it in other places. So I take the COVID in the academics situation currently in this frame. I count it to like an earthquake in the middle of the ocean. Like this happened in Japan a couple of years ago, where there was an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. It rattled the shelves in Japan, and people were like, "Wow, that was a really strong earthquake." And everyone's like, wow, let's just pick up our broken dishes and carry on with life. And no one realized for quite some time that there was a tsunami coming to wipe out everything. A big 60-foot wave that was just going to be catastrophic. It was going to make that earthquake look like nothing. And this is what I'm saying is happening right now with COVID in our academic system, that there's been this earthquake and everyone's like, wow, this has been really rough. We're really thinking this has been a hard day of education, trying to get our kids to learn math. But what I don't think people understand is there's about to be a tsunami, a whole group of kids that we're really going to struggle with here in major ways. And I'm not just talking academic. I'm talking emotionally, socially, in a bunch of ways. And then you talk about this university and college thing. What are we going to do for admissions for these kids when there's been this huge dip? Because I'm waiting for the study to come out in a year's time or more that looks at the average GPA of a student pre and post COVID and how schools and universities are going to amend their criteria for admissions and for scholarships. Because my suspicion is that there is going to be some sort of a dip, not an increase or a rise in any sort of way, because it takes an exceptional student. Now, I'm a university grad, a recent one. In the past 6 years, I graduated. And the reality is I took 2 online courses during my degree. And my degree was reading and writing intensive because it was philosophy-based. Pardon me. And those 2 online classes, and remember, I paid a lot of money for those classes myself. I'm a very motivated, mature adult for the most part, right? You can laugh. It's okay. Um, and the reality is, I struggled with my online classes. My lowest grades were those 2 online classes. Now we're expecting a 9th grader, a 5th grader, young kids to get online and by and large unsupported in the home and do well, let alone a student who is at risk or risk immersed with God knows what's happening in the background that you do or do not see. And we hear stories all the time about what walks behind a student while, there's been stories of God knows awful things. So what I'm saying is that our schools need to be ready to address, our legislators need to be ready to take notice of what's about to happen, because I think it's going to be quite traumatic.
So just to recap, the issues impacting just getting into college right now are going to be GPAs. Mm-hmm. It's going to be the fact that high school sports programs have been canceled, mm-hmm. that colleges have eliminated sports programs. So even if you were, hoping to go on a swim scholarship or a bowling scholarship or whatever, that's not happening either. So we have this kind of academic tsunami. Talk more about the social and emotional impacts that are going to impact kids long term.
Well, I'll tell you the first thing we're seeing here right now is this, the word complacency. People just don't think it's a big deal. And I say students don't think, well, what's a big deal? I sit home and I play video games all day. This is awesome, and I don't think that students really understand the depth of the long-term scarring here. So, and I'll put this into parameters. I'll paraphrase one of our students that we currently have in our traditional program, not our ARC program, but our traditional program. His mom had close contact with somebody. He had already been with us since September. He was with us for a bit last year, summer break, and then back this September. He was off for 2 weeks for the COVID kind of separation there because of close contact. When he walked in the front door from my office, I heard him come in, and I yelled his name out, and he's like, hey, what's going on? And he walked in, and he goes, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be back. And so here's a student that, again, has access, has things to do at home that are fun for teenagers, but socially was starving because he's at home, but his parents are working. They're out doing whatever, and he was dying for interaction. Now you take this, now it's been months where students have been out of school in their social environment, and my son is one of them. And even he is saying, I just want to go back to school. So you take a student who is not as willing as these two to express themselves, who already is predisposition to emotional harm or scarring or any of those ACE events that we talk about where they've experienced huge traumatic events in their lives.
Adverse childhood experiences.
Yes, sorry. And you add solitude and quiet into that life like they have not experienced in 10, 15 years because they've been in school. Great harm can be done to that student. Suddenly you have access to time, hours in a day that a student never had access to emotionally, compress. And, there's a time to be sit and to be quiet alone and kind of recover. But when you have hours and hours and hours, studies have shown over and over again that those who are emotionally distressed, that is one of the worst things that we can be doing to people. So,
well, we know that in certain situations, solitary confinement is the hardest punishment, right?
Yeah,
and so emotional. In many ways, this is what's occurring for not just our kids, but for all of us.
Yeah, to varying degrees, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where, and again, to show you the impact of this, one of our teachers here at Rise Above, we make gift bags for kids sometimes and whatnot, and we have a student that has finished our program and has been at school for the past few months, and we brought one of these gift packages to their home. And when our teacher knocked on the door and dropped it off, the mom was literally in tears, thanking us for going above and beyond to reach out. Again, that social starvation is big for these families, and all we did was drop off a little care package just to let the student know that we cared, with some candy and other toys and stuff. And it's nothing big, but at the same time, that's what it means right now. So I really think that there's the thing for us, what we're doing here at Rise Above, and what's critical for us is, we want to give students a chance to continue to interact with their peers, and to struggle mentally with problems. Well, we don't, if you're sitting at home, you don't necessarily get that same articulation of thought and those sorts of things. And for us, it's critical that the relational piece continue.
So, looking at forecasting for our communities, we have an education issue. Nonprofits, all of us maybe need to be thinking about how that education issue is going to impact the people that we serve, and how do we accommodate that. We all need to be empathetic. We all need to recognize that emotional issues are going to further place barriers in front of the people that we serve, and figure out how we accommodate those needs on top of everything else that we're accommodating. What else?
Yeah, and I think, Martha, you had a great point here in your comment below about, we're talking a lot about students, but this is happening, the same thing is happening to administrators in our schools as well. Because, the one thing that I've gotten to know really well since taking this role with Rise Above, well, because we launched the organization, since working with this population at Rise Above, is administrators care deeply for their students by and large. And one of the things that I do every year is I'm one of the first selection committees for the Top Teacher Award in Jackson. And it's been a phenomenal, I think it's my 5th year. I just finished it last week. The selection for the first top 10, and when you read these pages and pages and pages, sometimes it's hundreds of pages of reporting from these teachers and administrators and the people who nominate these people and everything else. You can tell that people are absolutely sold out for their students. And Martha, I think you're spot on when you say that our administrators are suffering deeply as well, in that it's affecting their ability to then go online and do some of the stuff that we're asking them to do. And sometimes we're changing the narrative on them weekly, through governor changes and things, and federal changes and things, and district-wide changes and things. So it is extremely stressful time for all involved, and I'd say particularly those who are the end users, teachers and students.
Neil, can you educate me too? Do the teachers? I thought there was some things that happened with COVID where it switched from a point system to just a straight pass or fail in a lot of the classes, and there wasn't as much of a way to even. I don't even know how that can impact a GPA when it switches to did you attend enough? Do you pass? Do you fail? And I thought that's kind of the system that a lot of the teachers were having to turn to accommodate the experience of COVID.
And I'll be honest with you, Martha, I don't know district-wide what each school is doing with that. I do know that my own students definitely are being graded. They're still taking attendance. Like my youngest is out of school right now. He has to be up at 7:30 every day. He has to be in attendance to his homeroom to get his attendance marked, and then his classes start for the day. So when it comes to that sort of stuff, different districts are definitely doing it each way on their own. I do not know at this point, but I could easily find out what all 13 in our area are doing specifically, or even statewide. So.
And Shalonda just said that her students or her daughter is being graded normally.
Yeah.
So So I think we did a really good job of defining the problem, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, but there's one more part here that we haven't really bridged yet, Regina, and that is, and one of my audience members on my end really brought it up too, is the idea of low income families, those families who don't necessarily have reliable access to things like tech and internet. Yes, a lot of schools are going one-to-one with regards to tech, but that still really doesn't necessarily solve the internet issue. So some districts have gone as far as to say, yes, there'll be a bus here at this particular time, or yes, you can come and sit in our lobby and use our internet. But again, if buses aren't running, a lot of families may not have access to that lobby or access to get to that bus where the internet is. So I think there's another thing that we're going to need to confront at some point here is, yes, it's a tragedy that some students are not going to get maybe the highest GPA that they want and aren't going to get scholarships, but there are students right now who want to attend but can't. And I recently just got a Best Buy grant for $15,000 to buy pieces of equipment for our students, like the Wi-Fi hotspot pucks and different tech like that, laptops and in the sort. So we're actively going to be doing things for the students that we receive here to ensure that they have access at home for those who engage.
So, and that access to technology is impacting every community, every nonprofit. We've been in this for 9-10 months, and we know that we still have people that are participating in meetings like this using their phone, right? That they don't have not only the internet but the adequate equipment to engage. But Neil, you and I started having a conversation about how even in the midst of all of this, that we have to turn toward how to thrive, right? So it's harder, and we have a ton of issues, and this is why I started this Let's Check Our Blind Spot, right? So you and I are having a conversation about education. Next month, we're going to have a conversation about evictions. The following month, it's going to be about the recovery community. Like, there's blind spots everywhere, and we need to start weaving these together. But you have a really important message about how we might be able to overcome. And I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that that we focus on here when we talk about, and Regina, correct me if I don't answer your question completely here.
You said that I could ask any question that I wanted.
You can.
And that you would answer it any way you wanted. So there we go. That's our agreement.
Yeah. So for us, the rise above answer for most of life's struggles is relationship. What is my ability to love and be loved? And when you close doors relationally, you mitigate or you limit your ability to do either of those things, which is love or be loved. The more loved you are, the more, we believe, the more capable you are to thrive. Because when you are loved, you feel empowered. We'll bring it right to its basic element. I'm a teenager. I'm struggling with life. My mom and my dad haven't been the greatest, but you know what? My Uncle Tim has always kind of been there for me. And you know what? I just got kicked out of the house, but you know what? I asked my Uncle Tim, and he let me sleep on his couch tonight. And, and he gave me that real big pep talk, and he pat me on the back and said, here's $10 for the cab tomorrow. Get your butt to work. I'll meet you there. We'll get you some lunch, and we'll get you started. It takes one person, and and this is the thing, Regina, that really sticks out in my mind, is this, we call it the onesies, twosies, this idea of, people often say about Rise Above, well, you only really work with about 35 to 50 kids a year. You really don't have a huge impact. And I say to them, well, what you're really talking about is, do the onesies and twosies matter? And I can tell you very plainly that they absolutely matter. When that onesies and twosies is your little one, your husband, your wife, your son, your daughter, whoever, I guarantee you would fall on a sword for your onesie twosie. And what we're saying is I am willing, rise above, my staff and I are willing to fall on a sword with you for your onesie twosie. Give me your kid, get him in here, let me love the hell out of him, and let me help him maybe take that first step to realizing, you know what, I am worth something. And one of the things, Regina, that we talk about as well is this idea of one thing that Rise Above refuses to do is to put junk in our building. We don't put, I mean, we love our donations. We love, when people give us stuff, but please, please, please value our students as much as we do. And we just don't put ratty stuff in here. Why? Because we want you, a donor, to feel like your stuff's A, going to go to good purpose, and B, we want our students to come in and feel like, wow, these people really think I'm worth something. They're not, they're not just putting junk in here. And so that's the first step in really creating a value in a person. So there's a platform that we use called Trust, Obedience, Challenge, Change, Growth. And then there's one that goes with it that's relational based. It's a 4-step thing. I'll come back to the Trust, Obedience, Challenge, Change, Growth in a second. The first of the 4 things that Rise Above ascribes to, and that I believe most people do without understanding it, is that relationships come first before anything else, whether it's academics, whatever. If you walk in that front door and you look like you just saw a ghost, I'm putting everything on hold and I'm saying, Martha, what's going on today? Are you okay, kiddo? Yeah, I just want to talk right now. All right, go ahead, grab a seat. I'll be with you in a sec, no worries. And I'll leave you alone. I'll let things settle and I'll let you have your minute. But if you don't get going, we're going to sit and we're going to talk. We're going to invest some time in understanding what's going on to let you know that even if I just got to sit with you, the idea of sitting Shiva, I'm just going to sit and I'm going to be quiet with you and I'm going to just do life with you. Even if that's all we do, I'm going to journey with you in this moment. My prayer is that you're going to open up and say, you know what, Neil, my mom really had a hard time last night. My dad did X, Y, Z, and we didn't get to bed till 4:00. Kids need that opportunity. And sometimes it's just to know that you are there. And so relationships come first for us. The second is that we believe every relationship should be unique. So in other words, I'm not going to treat you all the same. And I'll give you a shining example of this, and I'll go quick. We had 2 students come in one time that both were clearly, they were on drugs. No, as I said, the 2 students came in and they'd walked into school together, they'd done drugs. Talked to those two students individually. First one, like, what are you talking about? Didn't know drugs, blah, 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 everything's fine. Second kid was like immediately, Mom, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did it. So dumb, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, whatever. One kid got sent home and the other one didn't. The kid that got sent home was the kid that told the truth. And everyone's like, well, why'd you send that kid home? The reason why is because that student has a healthy home. I know that student is going to go home to a parent who is going to appropriately discipline them for the actions that they took that day. The second student, even though they were lying to us and trying to be deceptive, my fear was I know that student's father was abusive. I have a personal relationship to know enough to say that it is not safe for me to send this student home. So students are like, well, how come the so-and-so sent home and you didn't send so-and-so home? And you don't need to know. Just know that I'm doing the right thing. And so for us, relationships you need to be unique in all ways, shapes, or forms. We look at personalities, we look at love languages, all the things, as well as the circumstances that surround every environment. The third thing is that we believe we should share our relationships. So there are many beautiful people in this conversation right now who would offer my students amazing opportunities. My goal at some point would be to introduce one of you to one of my amazing students when appropriate and say, you know what? I think they can help you and you can help them, whether it be jobs, whatever it is, My job is to share those good relationships because hopefully it bumps another bad relationship out and it expands their horizons. And then ultimately, the fourth thing that we believe is that a relationship should endure. And by that, what I'm saying, and much like you do it in your own families, and again, we do this, we naturally do this. My daughter got married a few years ago. She moved out of my house. I didn't stop talking to her. I still love her to death. I invested immense amounts into her 19 years of existence before she got married and moved out of my house. Why would I stop talking to her? In the same vein, the Rise Above students that come into our building, we invest massive amounts of time and energy and care into their well-being. And we tell them, don't ever leave my social circle. You are welcome through my door anytime. I'll send you Christmas cards. I'll send you birthday cards. I will invite you to our events. You know, and some students say, yeah, that's awesome. And other students say, no, thank you. And we're okay with all of that. So, and that's.
So I want to share what I heard. And if Neil, I know you well enough to know, you and I know each other well enough to know that the only thing that I heard in that is, what does it matter to nonprofit organizations?
Yeah.
And those 4 ideals is how nonprofit organizations need to become more adaptive to serve the needs of their communities by starting with relationships,
Yep.
customizing all services, customizing all programs to meet the needs of one, as hard as that might be.
Regina, yes. So sometimes you have to create a package. That's your
Yep.
starting point. Yes. So it's not like you have to have
Yes.
this million. You start with, and then when someone sits in the chair, then you say, okay, what do you need?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. And that nonprofit organizations, whether it's volunteers, donors, clients, need to share those relationships with others.
Yeah.
You said something yesterday. You want to share your kids.
Yeah.
They're not your kids,
Nope.
but you want to share them with everybody.
Yeah.
I think nonprofit organizations need to do the same thing. And then,
go ahead. I'll let you finish. Then I'll put a comment on that.
and then every relationship needs to be nurtured and sustained for the long term. That 4th grade program, or I do this one thing and then I release you, right? Is the way nonprofits need to transform into, don't release anybody, right? Your services can scale back based on their needs.
Yep.
But
and so let's put all that together, because
okay,
fear is the word here, right? In this whole conversation, the whole conversation is centered around fear. Everyone's afraid of this thing that's going to happen. And I said to you before, never make money the issue. And it's the number one thing that nonprofits do, is they focus on the money first, because they're afraid, if I don't have the money, I can't do the service. And so their service lacks because they focus on the money. And Rise Above has said right from the get-go, focus on doing the right thing always. The money will come. Don't worry. I can tell you on one hand how many people I've cold called asking for money. I don't do it. People hear about Rise Above and they call me and they say, Neil, I heard about you guys. How can I help? Right? Or I'm introduced to somebody because of another relationship. And so what happens?
So briefly, you have been Rise Above established what year?
It's been 6 years.
6 years, and what's your operating budget today?
$750,000.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Keep going.
And so the other thing that then happens is when we start saying to, you talk about nonprofits and enduring relationships. So a lot of nonprofits are dependent on those interactions to get paid, because a lot of we don't receive federal or state funding, but a lot do, and they depend heavily on those interactions to get payment. And if you don't focus on enduring relationships, your clients are going to go elsewhere. And so it's self-deprecating. It's self-harm when you don't do things relationally that keep your clients coming through your front door. Because you're so focused on, I gotta do this thing, you miss an opportunity. And so, not that we don't want our clients Rise Above. We don't want our clients to come back. We want to continue a relationship with them, but we want them to come through our doors and not recidivize. And there's a stat I can give on that too. So remember to come back to recidification. I can tell you the number one thing I hear about other nonprofits from our students that come through, because a lot of our students, I would say the vast majority of our students are engaged with other nonprofits in our community, like Lifeways and Brian.
Our community mental health.
Yeah,
community mental health. Yeah.
Brian Filson's, drawing a blank on it.
Highfield.
And all that kind of stuff. The number one
families at risk.
Yes, the number one thing I hear from those families and students is, yeah, it's just hard because we get a new counselor every 3 months, or we get a new case manager every 2 weeks, or, we got really close to Susan, but then Susan got moved to another department. And, so we just left because we had to re-explain ourselves every time, And so that's the number one thing. And that is indicative of a zero focus on enduring relationships or depth of relationships to a point where we can see people through to the end of whatever the issue is that's why stuff doesn't get resolved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So let's talk about the recidivism and why Rise Above sees stuff get resolved. So again, our focus is relationship. So this is from the Justice Department. This is a national statistic for the population that we serve here. The vast majority of our students are engaged in the juvenile justice system, i.e. courts, probation, youth home, that sort of thing. And nationally, the statistic for this population is that over 80% will recidivize. In other words, 1 year post-offense, they will offend again and be reinvested into the system, whatever that system is. The average cost for that student to be in the system for 1 year for Michigan is about $174,000 annually for every recidivism offense. Students who come into Rise Above, and the average stay here is 1 year. For students that come through Rise Above and successfully complete our programs and go through our counseling, invest time with our teachers, and our teachers invest time with them, we have an over 80% success rate with that same student. So our success rate, how is it measured? And we're defining this better as we speak. We have a university student here putting together a large document for us to help us better explain this. Our success rate is based on 1 year post-offense. Does that student recidivize? Do they reoffend again to a point where they either get zero tolerance expelled or back in trouble with the law? And the answer 80+% of the time for us is no, they don't. So we've taken that statistic and flipped it. Well, what do? We don't give them a pill. We don't give them a bag of whatever. We love the hell out of them, period. I listen. We invest time and energy. We have fun. We laugh. We definitely cry together. We're real with the student. Depth of relationship. What brought that student out of? What brought a mom in here and said, what are you doing to my kid? We actually sat and had dinner last night. What is going on? I can't tell you how many parent-teacher meetings I've had with moms sobbing, saying, I have never had a good parent-teacher meeting with my student. It breaks my heart to think of how many students don't have the opportunity to come into a program like Rise Above just because we have this neat and tiny little box of how we do things, and you brought a gun to school, so yeah, sorry, and we miss the mark.
So, Neil, we just have about 10 more minutes. I invite anybody to ask Neil questions. One of the conversations that we started yesterday, and I don't know if you want to touch on, but any disparities that might be exacerbated. We know of some. There's lots of headlines out there, but are there other disparities that we should be aware of?
So yeah, I mean, in my audience, on my end, is pointing it out as well, is that a lot of the issues and disparities that we're seeing with particularly inner city kids and that sort of thing is those parents who struggle not only financially and medically, but also technically as well. Just a lot of these families also just don't know how to work with tech. They don't have the same level of access. They don't have the same level of understanding on how to. So sure, my son got this amazing laptop, and we even have internet, but no one knows how to work either of them. I can't even hook the laptop up to the internet because this is all new to me. I've not been shown how to. What's this red button on? Although that's the power button. Oh, okay. Yeah, like it's incredible to me. The assumptions we've made about what will happen if I just give a student a laptop or access, Hannah's asking a question.
I think Hannah's with the Jackson District Library. She wants to make sure that everybody knows that most library systems probably have Wi-Fi hotspots. But and Hannah, maybe you can share a little bit more about youth services in the library system. So just an awareness for all of you that Neil is not even just based in Jackson. You have programs outside of Jackson, in fact, starting programs internationally.
Yeah.
But this conversation is bigger than Jackson. You know, everything we've said can be applied to anywhere you are.
Yeah. This, again, relationships are not unique to Jackson County, is what you just said.
Yep.
And this is something that if you have a community in mind that you'd like to have this conversation at, Zoom is an amazing product, and we can have this conversation anywhere. But yeah, I think question-wise, the answer and the question really need to center around what are we doing next to get students back to school. And again, vaccine can come into that. Any number of questions and comments can come into that. I don't know that the vaccine's necessarily going to solve the getting kids back to school problem, because you're still going to have infections and at-risk people and all kinds of other things. But the reality then comes, if the schools are then going to, because this is the other question, is what's going to happen when, okay, we're all going back to school. I have a strong suspicion two things are going to happen. Some families are going to say, hey, this online thing's kind of worked out for my family. Can I just stay here? And I believe also some schools are going to say, hey, this online thing's kind of worked for some of our families. Can we just stay here? And so the real question we have to ask is, what does this mean for all of us long term with regards to academics and social interactions for our students? And how do we continue to have things like gym for those kids and or shop class or whatever else needs to happen?
I think that's a really big conversation, is how much has permanently changed, never to go back to the same.
Yeah.
And when we start exploring we're never going back. It is whether by choice or by necessity or by mandate, we're never going back to a very long list of things that have been altered. And some systems have been blown up, and they should have been blown up. Some systems have been blown up that have to be repaired quickly. I think our education system is one of those. But how do we put those pieces back together? And I think that's not a conversation for today, because I hope smarter people, I hope people like Neil are part of that conversation. But it's important to recognize that these types of conversations are forever conversations.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I'll say here, and one of them comes from my audience, and then the other is the answer to Martha's question. So the first thing I would say is that, and I'll read it verbatim, you can't stress enough to be sure that your students and all students are engaging with their local schools to let them know what their desire is. I want to come back to school. Let the school know that you want to come back, so that they can feel the urgency. Because if no one's asking to go back, they're not going to make preparations for you to come back as quickly as some might want. So it's imperative that we continue to tell our board members, Shalonda Hunt, that that we want to come back to school, or that, hey, I want to stay home and try online, so they can prepare to start making arrangements for those things to happen. So it's just, again, perspective. Everyone, if I'm only in my own little bubble and don't talk to anybody, no one ever knows what I'm thinking. So it's important. So Martha, your question, do I do home visits, case management, or is it all provided on-site at my building? For the most part, the bulk of our work is provided on-site in our building. What I do, Martha, is I go to other programs, schools, nonprofits and whatnot, and speak or do engagements regularly to talk about our work and to help provide guidance and direction. My background is management, business. I've literally, some of the organizations I've worked with, I've had hundreds and hundreds of employees under me. So I'm used to speaking to large management groups and in business groups and kind of leading, kind of train the trainer type stuff, So I'm always welcome to come in and talk to institutions about how we can be relationally better and those sorts of things. So.
Neil, what question did you want me to ask that I haven't yet?
I think the big thing is to let you know that there's an answer for today. So what is Rise Above solution for the current problem is the question, and that is our online program that we currently have. It's not ours. It's the counties. What we're saying at Rise Above is if you have students or families, or if you have access to get the word out, we have access. We have room for up to 100 kids right now to come in here and to have access to our great brand new technology, amazing Wi-Fi, amazing staff, to come in and to do their online studies here. So instead of sitting at home alone, unsupported, distracted, doing God knows what, parents, drop your kids off for a half a day, 2-3 days a week. You can pick mornings or evenings, and let us help your kid get through the day. We'll give them some social interaction. We'll give them some academic rigor. We'll help keep the grades up. We'll give homework as part of this. We'll actually focus the student onto their academics. The program's already up and running. We've been running it for, this is the end of our first week here. And it's free to the students. It's completely free. It's all paid for already. We just need the students to come in, just show up and be picked up at the end of the day. So.
And for other communities, they could either call you to say, how might we design this or build this, even if it's temporarily, to help kids,
Yep.
or just listen to this because you've given kind of like a recipe, instruction manual about what our kids need and the stressors that are facing them.
Yeah, and the easiest thing they could do is just call 517-513-3892. Again, 517-513-3892, or visit our website, www.riseabovejxn.org. And there's all the information's in there that you can kind of find it out and even enroll your student at that point or get more information. So, yeah, we know the problem is huge. The question is, do you see it? Are you ignoring it? Or are you just not doing anything about it? So, yeah. Thank you, Tracy.
So I recorded this. I'm going to put it up on we'll pretend it's live. The whole world will hopefully think that it's live. Yeah. I'll figure out the technology later. I'll find somebody that's 49, not 51.
Fair enough. What I would say as well is if anyone's interested in a weekly conversation like this that goes into deep relational conversations about trust or community or any number of topics, that would be, again, you're welcome to come visit us over on Twitch and just look up risk_immersed, where every Monday about 11 o'clock we have similar conversations that pertain to our students, our community, and our audience. So,
Neil, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time sharing this really important issue for all of our communities, regardless of where you live. And so, thanks for planting the seed that these types of conversations need to exist. So, thanks for that. Yeah. Thanks for the inspiration.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. It was a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing the ones in the future as well from you, Regina.
All right, cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right.
And enjoy the sun today.
Bye.
Bye, guys. All right. Thank you, everyone, for holding on here. I'm going to see if I can get my camera to pop back up here. Give me a sec. See if my camera will pop back up. Webcam. Hey, Linz. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. I'm just trying to get my webcam back up and running. Give me a couple of seconds here, folks. I just got to shut off Zoom, I think. Yeah, I'm hoping not to have to restart everything here. Can you guys hear anything, everything? So I'll have to restart OBS. That sucks. That means I have to end the stream. Okay, perfect. Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to figure this out. I'm better than this. Okay, perfect. So what did you guys think of that format? Because that's new. That's the first time we've done that format here at Rise Above, and I'm not entirely sure. It's I like it. Unplug and replug the webcam. It's in the back of the computer. I don't know how I would do that. Well, I know how I would do it, but I'll have to give me a sec. I'm going to restart the stream here. I don't want to do that. That sucks. More presentational than a dialogue. Yeah, it's difficult. Pardon me. It's difficult to yeah. Actually, I think I might have found the problem here. Give me a second. It's difficult to kind of coordinate that. Again, that was the first time she'd done that. This is going to be a regular thing now on for them to be doing on Facebook. But I was kind of like the guinea pig because I kind of had, because we do this regularly, you know, she thought it would be a good idea for me to try and be like the first one. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to see if I can take your advice, Rabbi, and unplug and replug my my camera. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, no luck. So I'm going to have to restart the stream. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to restart everything and see if we can get this to fire up.